Welcome back, everyone, to Crime and Entertainment. We have a very special guest with us this evening. This man starred in one of my favorite television shows, as I've often said on this show, my favorite TV show of all times, The Sopranos. He was in a number of seasons, had a very interesting character we would get into today, and was also in a number of other films that we'll also talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Robert Funaro. Robert, how are you, pal?
All right. Thank you very much. That's a great intro. I mean, you couldn't get a better intro than that way. Thank you. It's very nice of you.
Absolutely. Look here, man. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm a big fan of The Sopranos. You know, you were in The Irishman also,
Yes.
American Gangster. I mean, you've done a little stint on Ray Donovan. You've worked with some top-notch talent. But let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Brooklyn originally, Coney Island Hospital. I was born in Coney Island Hospital, and then we lived in Brighton Beach, near Sheepshead Bay, and then we moved to Bensonhurst. And then when the Verrazano Bridge opened up to Staten Island, about 2 or 3 years later, my dad decided to buy a home, like many people from Brooklyn who could afford, homes were like $26,000. They got a mortgage.
Right.
It was a home boom here in Staten Island. So they called it the Guinea Gangplank. So when we came, the Brooklynites came, and I invaded with all the other Brooklynites. So I grew up in Staten Island. When I got to Staten Island, I really liked it because there was a lot more room around, and less building, and more chances to, join teams and to participate in sports. It seemed everything was so tight in Brooklyn. You had to really hustle to get on the basketball court or just get into a game because there were so many kids. But here I had a lot of chances. So that's where I grew up.
Well, a lot of those names that you just spit out, Brighton Beach and Bensonhurst and all that's mob territory 100%. Was there a big wise guy presence when you were growing up? Did you know that, the wise guys were around in your area?
Nothing I knew of. I mean, there was always a presence. I never really encountered any of them, although there were certain people I knew that probably were uh, connected. As we say in
Right.
Brooklyn, they were connected. My father probably did jobs for some of these men that were connected, but their presence wasn't so out in the open at my age. Here in Staten Island, excuse me, when I moved to Staten Island, not very much until I became a teenager, and I became more aware of those guys. Well, I encountered a few, like card games and stuff like that. My brother's friends, my brother had some friends, and my brother's a doctor, of course. He's not a wise guy. I just want to make that clear. But he introduced me to a few of the guys. He used to play cards with them and stuff like that.
Right. So, who was probably in the area that you grew up? Who was probably the big time guys when you were coming up? Was that
Uh,
before John
uh,
Gotti's time or
yeah, well, I grew up with the Biglottis, Tommy
Tommy
Biglotti's,
Bellotti?
Tommy Biglotti's nephews,
Okay.
Jimmy and Dom and all the guys, Charlie, and great guys. And I grew up with, but we never spoke about anything like that, about his uncle or anything like that. That was never spoken about. These are all great guys who have work in different areas, construction, sanitation, two different, factions. But it was John Castellano,
Hmm.
uh, who was the big boss. Before that was Carlo Gambino, of course.
Right.
Um, and then the Genovese family, little branches of Genovese family. But those are the guys that were coming up, basically. And then, of course, John Gotti, who became the boss of bosses with Neil Delacroce. You
Yeah.
know,
Neil was a stone cold gangster for sure.
yeah,
uh,
he was old school.
yeah, he was old school 100%. Now you mentioned Tommy Bellotti. Now he was what Paul Castellano's underboss, I believe, and those were the two that got gunned down in front of Spark Steakhouse.
Right.
In the famous hit, in the if you've anybody seen the movie Gotti, that's the famous hit. Now Tony Sirico actually plays one of the hitmen in the HBO film from '96, Gotti, with Amato Santi. I think he's one of the hitmen that does the shooting
Yeah,
in there.
it's true. He was Tony was in that, of course. That's
Yeah,
an
a
early.
lot of Sopranos guys were. A
Sure,
lot of them.
we're all working actors trying to get a job, and sometimes, most times, kind of pigeonholed. They kind of say, and of course you work with great directors like Martin Scorsese
Right.
and Armand Assante was brilliant. I just saw Armand at the Mob Movie Con,
Yes.
Soprano Con, Mob Movie Con in Atlantic City. And he was brilliant in that film. People remember him as being great in there. And
I don't think they could have picked anybody better to do Gotti at that
Armand's
point in
he's
time.
a terrific actor and underrated actor, not really as appreciated as he should be. But you do your thing, and you go from thing to thing, and that's the way it is as an actor. You're kind of a traveling salesman in a way.
Right. And I'm not sure if you've seen it down there. Did they unveil it at the Mob Movie Con? They're doing a Gotti 2.
I believe so. I don't know too much about the Gotti 2 film.
I didn't either. I mean, that's news on me, but it's definitely so. If he's got something to do with it, I look forward to it. I mean, I was excited about the Travolta film where he played Gotti, and I thought he did a good job, but the movie just went through so many rewrites and holdbacks and setbacks. Like at one time, I think Pacino was scheduled to play Delacroix. Joe Pesci was scheduled to play Angelo Ruggiero. He put on a lot of weight for the role, and things just kept getting pushed back. I think Joe actually wound up suing the production. All of them wound up eventually dropping out, and then other guys, signed on to play the parts. Willie DeMeo, he was Sammy the Bull in the Travolta movie. And I mean, it was good, but it was hard to beat that 96 Gotti movie. Everybody just seemed to really nail their roles in the 96.
Well, I mean, a script has got to be a good script. The original Gotti film was a really good script. I think this script with John Travolta, not by his own fault, was a little
Right.
bit weaker.
Yeah.
That, people a little bit more critical having him playing the role.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the things that you said, people that dropped out. I don't know too much about Joe Pesci dropping out or the other actors or Pacino doing it, but if things go south like that, I mean, if Coppola was doing it, if Marty was doing it, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. But listen, even though that happened, it gave Willie a great chance to play Sammy the Bull. It
Yeah.
gave a lot of opportunities to actors who probably would have not have been hired, given that the stars. It's just that it didn't come together as a great film, and that's the unfortunate thing. But you give it a shot as an actor. You give it a shot. It's not the actor's fault. It's just the writing, I think, and the way it's put together.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you get Armand, he's a great actor. He's just, I don't know if you ever saw him in Paradise Alley, one of my greatest films with Stallone wrote this film a novel called Paradise Alley. And Armand is just brilliant in that. There's about three brothers, three brothers or four brothers and they're growing up in Philadelphia and their struggle. And it's great.
Yeah, I have to check that out. I know he done a movie, something where he was on the sea. I don't know if he was like a captain or something like that. But a friend of mine down here, we've got sons the same age, and she said her boyfriend at the time was a stunt double for Ahmad Asante, and I was just like, really? So I got to talking to him about it, and he wasn't a stunt double; he was a body double for shots that Ahmad couldn't be here for that day. They happened to see him in a bar and they gave him a card, and he was a body double for him for that particular movie. It's something C or something like that. I can't remember, but
I'm not sure.
It was filmed here in Charleston, South Carolina, which a lot of movies are where I'm at.
Yeah, I did The Sinner in South Carolina.
Okay. Yeah.
Jessica
Yeah.
Biel. I filmed The Sinner in South Carolina with Jessica Biel. Had a good time doing it. Nice hospitality, nice people down there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's become a melting pot now. Not many people that are here are from here, for sure. Everybody's from everywhere else.
Yeah.
But so coming up,
I worked with Armor in a film that I did. It could be seen on Netflix, I believe, or Prime, called Charlie Mantle. We have a couple of good scenes in there, so check it out.
okay. Yeah. Everybody be sure to check that out. What was the name of it again? Charlie Mantle?
Charlie Mantle.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
I'm a bad lieutenant. I play like a bad lieutenant, and Armand's involved in it all. He's with me. He plays my superior.
Okay.
We have like a little bit of a battle between each other. It's the first time I worked with him. We had a great time. Yeah, he's great. Really honored to work with a guy like that. You think about it. You think about who you work with. It just goes by, and then years go by. When I look back at it now, wow, I'm really blessed to work with Armand Asante, man.
Well, I mean, and a lot of guys that you work with, you
Sure.
work with some top-notch talent, Ahmad and Jimmy Gandolfini, who we'll get into a little bit later. And
Yeah. Go ahead, man. Yeah.
pretty much, I don't need to go through and list them individually. The whole cast of The Sopranos, I mean, just that was a landmark television show that just it took acting to another level. And the thing about it was a lot of those guys, they weren't huge name actors. And I know there was reports that Ray Liotta had read for Tony Soprano. And I think if they had got somebody that had a name recognition, I don't know if it would have been the same. You had these guys that a lot of people might have seen here and there, but they didn't know, and they got to know him through that first season, and they got to know him and have a relationship with him. And I think that was part of the brilliance of the show, is they became like family to the viewers. And
Yeah.
if you'd have had somebody already there, I think that would have took away from it.
Uh, that's the courage of a man like David Chase to hire a not so known, unknown. James was known, but not
Right.
really on mainstream known for True Romance. He was brilliant
Yeah.
and so to take that, to roll the dice, which David did, he chose the right horse, you might say. He
Yeah.
chose the champion horse, and James just was the right actor at the right time, and he had everything going for that role. I mean, the dichotomy of being happy and then miserable at the same time, what he could bring out in the role, and what he proved he could do on Broadway and the other roles that he did in the other films. He just wasn't a one note actor.
Yeah.
So he chose the right man. Sometimes it happens that way.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Edie Falco, she had done Oz. She had done a couple
Yeah,
stints in Oz. And, he brought her in. Dominic, who had done,
she was,
The Godfather, and he was in Gotti as well.
Dom wasn't really doing great.
Right.
I mean, of course, his Johnny Olo was no one could compare to his Johnny Olo in The Godfather. Terrific, but he had a lot of years of struggle, and
Mhm.
he deserved everything he got. He was ready when that was handed to him. He was ready to go.
Yeah.
That's what you want as an actor. You suffer these times, like since COVID. I don't think I've worked maybe indirectly in readings and Zooms and everything, but professionally I haven't worked, and it does something to you. When
Yeah.
when you get a role, you say, I don't really care anymore. I'm just going to do this and do it the best I can, and it's good enough. And he was good enough, man, more than good enough. Dom Genese.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He killed that role. Well, well, coming up, did you always have aspirations to be an actor, or is that something you kind of found later on in life, or when did you kind of think that
I
this
mean,
acting is something I want to do?
well, I had the bug from my uncle, Monsignor Joseph Funaro. He used to put on these musicals for Catholic Charities in Brooklyn. And before Catholic Charities, he had a parish that he would raise money, how to succeed in business. And then later on, when he moved up in the clergy as a fundraiser, he put on really great professional productions of Hello Dolly. And he gets that. Sometimes he would have the arranger, the original arranger, the playwright, the libretto writer there, and I got the bug. We would always go to see his shows, and that's how I basically got the bug. I finally was going to audition for one. I forgot the name of the show. It's just too long ago. But then I dropped out because the dancer that I liked, she dropped out, and I said, I'm not going to go. So he was upset, But look, dance. It was being a dancer. I'm not really great. I mean, I can dance and hold a rhythm, but it really wasn't me. But I was willing to do it for that girl that I had a crush on.
Yeah, you'll do.
But I
You
mean,
do a
that's
lot
how I
for
got the
women.
bug. That's how I got the bug originally. Yeah.
Okay. What was your first acting gig? You remember what your first one was?
Well, there are two. There are two, but one's more memorable than the other. I played Harry Brock in Born Yesterday in Paterson, New Jersey. That was my first professional job, but it was a summer stock job, so it was kind of crushing.
Right.
You had to crush all the lines together. You had to learn it. And then, but my first real professional job was with James Gandolfini in A Streetcar Named Desire. We
Okay.
toured Scandinavia 3 months. We started in Sweden, we moved to Finland, and then we moved to Norway for 3 months. And we did theaters and bars and different places. I played Stanley, he played Mitch. We got paid in Deutschmarks, about 600 Deutschmarks a week. It was great pay. The Deutschmark was so strong. I mean, it was really my first professional gig. And of course, you couldn't get a better partner to play Mitch than
Right.
Jimmy, and he was great. I mean, he just got better and better as the tour. He was very competitive, and I remember that. And he got better and better as the tour progressed. I might have started out a little bit out of the gate. I was out of the gate quicker than him, but at the finish line, Mr. James Gandolfini, my friend, was number one.
Yeah.
You know, his Mitch was just, and then of course he proved it when he played opposite Alec Baldwin in Streetcar Named Desire. He was hired as an understudy, I believe, and then he did performances. I don't know how many, but he did, and he did enough performances to prove that he was a great Mitch. You know.
And
Great play, Southern play, Tennessee Williams. Wow, what a play! Yeah,
right. And I'd seen him in True Romance, and then it was a smaller role, but it was a big impact in the role. I don't know if you ever seen the 8mm with Nicolas Cage.
Yes,
He was in there. He was kind of guy that brokered the deal. Nicolas Cage came to him looking for the girl that was in the snuff film. He had a good role in that. Like, people that can take those small roles and turn them into something memorable is, that's who, can carry a show or a movie or something like that. And he did that in 8mm. To me, he almost outshined, the main bad guy. I forget his name, but I think it's Dino Velva was the character's name. I forgot his real name. He was in Armageddon and a few other things.
Yeah, it's funny, Wade, because from time to time I would run into James in New York when he came back from LA, and I just knew there was like I just knew James was he was going to succeed. It just he had a way about him that, and it just had this gut feeling that James was, wow, he can really. And then of course he gave me my big chance, and he sent the elevator down, as Jack Lemmon would say, for his friends on season 3 of Sopranos. He came into where I was working, Caroline's on Broadway. I was managing. A friend of mine, Gordy Silver, great guy, went up to him at a party and said, "Hey, if I was you, I'd get my friend Bobby Funaro a job on your show." It was season 3.
Yeah.
And he went up to him and said, "Yo, Bobby, where's Bobby working?" I mean, I remember Bobby. Yeah, love Bobby. Yeah, what's he working at? Works at a comedy club, Caroline's. Well, James, there was a character I was right for, and James came down. He took Joe Fay, his driver, to a few comedy clubs, and he found me down at the comedy club. I walked down because Caroline's, you descend the stairs on Broadway. I don't know if you ever been there.
I have not.
I had to go there one time. It's a great comedy club, great comics. And he descended the stairs, and of course he descended the stairs. He was down there at the bar while I descended the stairs, and I saw him at the bar, and I said, "James, what's happening?" And we just picked up where we left off. I may have seen him once or twice in Hell's Kitchen because he was living there from time to time when he was in that LA. He might have maintained his New York residence. I'm not sure. Anyway, he asked me to audition. Couldn't promise me anything. Chris Walken's wife, Georgiana Walken, and Sheila Jaffe, the casting director, they were across the street from Caroline's on 48th Street or 49th Street in Broadway. So it was great. I just locked the club. I got the audition the next week, locked the club. I just bared down on the role, and I landed a role on Sopranos because of James. What can I say? I owe my whole career to the guy. Of course, sometimes I think, the God in heaven, he has his hands in everything first, but James, if I've ever met a guy that was like God, it would be like James in real life. Because when Charles Lipton asked him, "What would you?" He asked him, "What would you?" If you had a question I think it's one of his questions at the end of the Actor Studio series. He said to him, I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
You had to ask God one question, or you had to ask God one thing. What would you ask? And James said, "Can I take over for a while?"
Yeah, he's like, "I'm glad you're here. You can take over for a little bit."
Yeah, and that taking over for a while is just to make look, we do what we do, and that I'm not going to get into any religious thing with you, Wade, but that's very fatherly. That's very fatherly to make the world a better place. So, and he's right behind you, right there. He's smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, what's up, man? How you doing, man? Hey, I'm here because of you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, he put you in the position to succeed. Obviously, you had to do your part, but he
Yeah,
put you in the position to succeed. Now, that was actually where I was going next. He kind
yeah.
of put you in that position. Did you read for Eugene right off the bat, or was there
No,
anybody
no,
else you read
no,
for?
no. I talked about this on Talking Sopranos, and I've told many people that have interviewed me that originally I landed the role of Ralph Cifaretto,
Really?
and
I didn't know that.
yes, I
Have
was.
they aired that episode yet on Talking Sopranos? Because I don't know if I've heard it.
Yes, I talk about that on Talking Sopranos. I think it's episode. My episode was 23 or something like that, and now they have a book coming out. I think they mention it in the book.
Okay. Okay.
So I was given the role. I mean, I auditioned for the role, but then, while I was doing it, there was a chemistry between me and Jimmy that David really wasn't happy with. Excuse me. So, I mean, it really wasn't working out.
Right.
So David said, I'm going to bring in, he brought in another actor. Joe Pantaleone came in, and then I became Eugene.
Okay.
And I asked Terry, who's Eugene? He said, well, figure it out as we go along. And they did figure it out. And I think that a part of Eugene was me, things that I did on offset when we were around the other actors. The writers get to know you, and you know, yeah. So that's what happened to me. So if you notice when the credits roll on season 3, I'm in the front credits.
Okay.
I'm in the front credits because I was contracted, to do Ralph. I was in the front credits, but I ended up in the back credits. But then I think about it, and God says the first will be last, and the last will be first. So that's something to do with that.
Yeah.
Because I was really happy with my last episode, Members Only. Give me a chance to
Oh
really
yeah.
open up, and so I might have been first, but last will be first. So I don't know, something like that, man. I was happy with who I played.
Yeah, and Ralph Cifaretto, the character, like you said, played by Joey Pants, he killed that role
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't get a
better than
better guy to
anybody.
be an antagonist or a bull. Can I curse here? Or some
Absolutely, go ahead.
bull breaker than Joey Pants, because that's Joey Pants. He's a bull
Yeah.
breaker, but
And
he's a
it's
great actor. Great actor.
and it seemed like everybody that had that role of leadership in that crew, except for Gigi, because Gigi and Tony got along, John Fiora. Richie Aprile was a pain in Tony's ass. Then Ralph was a pain in Tony's ass. I mean, it kind of went on, and no good luck really came out of having that job. Even Vito later on, he had met with a bad ending. So that job wasn't really one to kind of jump at there. You never jumped at it. You were a smart guy.
Yeah, I think it was an act of God's grace that took me out of that role and put me in the role of Eugene. Even though I met a tragic ending, one might say, but I thought more of a kind of did it to liberate my family, because I could not get out, and the only way they can basically move was for me to do that. Although it's not a solution, that's the way I always felt. Although they don't talk about that on Sopranos. Michael calls me a mutt, and they say, they talk about me. I think Maureen Van Zant, Gabriel Dante talks about me, and with Hesh,
Yeah.
they talk a little bit about me, but didn't really matter, because that's the reason why I did it. If anyone asks me, I always tell them that. I think it's obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, you're backed into that corner,
I
and
mean, to look at the children, everything I've had in Florida, that I can't get what I want, and the only way they can get back to Florida is by me doing. I mean, like Harry Carey, kind of like, to me, it was
yeah.
a Japanese thing, Wade.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I
Even
mean,
though you never saw Eugene with the noodles.
yeah. Yeah, and then you had that great kill where you went and you done the kill to try to get Tony to persuaded to let you go.
Yeah, I heard it was like one of the top 10 hits on Sopranos, like like the killings. I think made 8 or 7, something. My
Yeah.
cousin was telling me that today.
Now I gotta ask you, the dropping the gun thing, was that written into the script? Was that kind of a Godfather homage? Because that's not something you want to do. I mean, I'm not condoning killing anybody here. Let's get that straight right now. But if
Well,
you do it, it's probably not good to drop the gun.
well, the gun was written that it would be untraceable in the script. That
Okay.
the gun was left at the scene, like the gun was left on top of Jimmy Hoffa. The same thing that De Niro did. So that's a feasible thing that could happen. Let me just say that. So the gun, but I think that, yes, to me, it was a homage to The Godfather from myself. I think Eugene watched films, and I think that he was influenced to drop that gun like that. I mean, and he had gloves on, of course, and it was untraceable. But I think it was somewhat a choice that I made as Eugene, and it was kind of, I said they say that great actors steal, so I thought why not,
Yeah.
And Tim Van Patten, a great director, he thought it was cool enough to leave it. He didn't say, "Oh, do another take and just don't drop the gun." He left it that way, so he was partly involved in that, and I think it worked. I don't know about you. I liked it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I did like it. I mean,
But you're questioning its feasibility, is what you're
yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
But as I said to you, if you
If
question
it's
its
a gun's
feasibility,
untraceable.
yes, as they did in Irishman and
Yes.
many other films. But I'm just giving you an example of a current film at a time when behavior like that with pistols were left behind. And of course, it was done in The Godfather too. So we know that.
Yeah, a little DNA wasn't a big factor back in those days. It wasn't something that is as prevalent nowadays for sure.
Well, yeah,
And but like you said, if you're getting the gun and it's hot and the serial numbers are filed, there's really no way to trace it back to you either if you're wearing gloves and things like that. So yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes sense, and it's definitely like we spoke of was a homage to The Godfather for sure. And yeah,
I put that in myself. Yeah.
okay. Now, when you read, and I know we're backtracking a little bit, but when you read for The Sopranos, did you read for David Chase at all, or was it other
Of course,
people?
yeah. I read for the whole commission. We called it
Yeah.
the commission. They had, you would read for Georgianne, and Sheila wasn't. I think Sheila was taking care of the L.A. office because they divided, and she might have been back and forth to New York. But Georgianne was doing the casting in New York, and once I got the call back, I was called back to Silver Cup Studios to read for David and the whole, because David would invite the whole crew, costume designer, um, assistant director of the episode, and it was terrifying. Let me just tell you. I said my prayers before I went in, and the only thing that kept me together were my prayers. Let me tell you.
He seems like an intimidating.
Every big role or everything, it was done that way, and it was scary.
Yeah. He seems like an intimidating presence, just him. So I would imagine him and 15 other people or so in there. I'm just spitballing a number, but that would have to be pressure.
It's not that he's intimidating. He's like a gnome.
Right.
He's like a leprechaun that he pops up everywhere that you don't really know. I guess you could say that probably he's a great poker player because
yeah. It seems to me, and I could be totally wrong, but it seems to me that you could nail a scene or you could be totally horrible and you're going to get the same reaction from him, at least off the rip.
I don't know.
It's just,
I think that, as a director, I mean, it's tough. Actors, they need direction. Sometimes their look is just not right for the role, or you think, like Kazan, he was smart enough to get to know the actor, have discussions with him. Right. It just was in TV. It's like, show me what you can do. But there are directors in film that like to sit down with the actor to get to know them and to get a gut feeling that the actor could. Marty Scorsese is like that, to get a gut feeling that the actor can do it, because auditions, as Kazan said, could be deceiving. An actor could be terrific in the audition, but then when you're on set and things change and it's not, you have to kind of be, casting is everything, and that's what happens sometimes, in TV at least, so.
Right. Now you come on in season 3. I mean, now Sopranos is firing on all cylinders. And I'll be honest, when I first seen the show, when it was on in its first two seasons, I knew about the show. I was kind of in my early partying days, so I don't even know if I had HBO at the time, but I was at a guy's house, and I know the season premiere of 3 came on. And I think there's a scene when Tony's leaving, he's with Furio, and he goes and he taps on the hood of or stops in front of the FBI, and he's like, "Hey, I'm just going up to the store. You don't have to follow me like last week." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Well, that's kind of funny. I like that." So I wound up watching that whole thing, and I'm just like, "All right, well, you know what? I don't want to get too deep into this. I want to go back from the front." So I went back and I got the first 2 seasons, which at that time was a lot of money. I mean, those box sets on DVD back then, they were about $100 a piece.
Yes, they were.
And I bought those and got caught up, and then I subscribed to HBO, and then I didn't miss a Sunday. It was like it was my church every Sunday night. It was religion for me to watch The
Many
Sopranos.
Americans, it was a
Yeah.
religious thing. I mean, well, I wouldn't want to call it religion. It was a excessive addiction, you might say.
Yeah, addiction. Yeah, that might be the better word for it,
Like
addiction.
a cavity, and you put your tongue on that cavity. It's like it's there, you
Yeah.
know.
And I was there every Sunday night, like you said, as a lot of people were. What was your first episode in season 3? Were you in the
I work with, I saw Vito Antifermo at the a mob movie con. He made an appearance. And I remember being with Ralph, knocking on someone's door and having a baseball bat. And I think hitting that person with the baseball bat. I think me and Vito roughed the guy up with Ralph.
Okay.
Collect some money. That was my very first scene on the show.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that. I think it's when something about I remember Ralphie like sitting in the car
Yes.
saying Tony doesn't want no more fires. So instead of the fires, y'all beat the guy up with some bats.
Yes, it
I
was,
think it was.
a lot of fun.
So in season 3, like we mentioned, obviously Jackie Jr. has the big arc. Ralph kind of has the big arc with him. What was some of your most memorable scenes, either that you were in or that you've seen from season 3? What's kind of some things that stick out for you in season 3?
I don't know. Was Columbus Day in season 3? I had a really great time doing Columbus Day with Sylvia.
I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was in season
I had a really great time with blowing my nose. I really loved that bit. It was one of my favorite times, of, just fooling around with the guys and, blowing my nose and him getting annoyed and everything. I think that was a fun. It might have been 4. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it wasn't 4.
Season 3 was, with John Fury, who basically, of course, then Ralph, Ralph came in to play. I guess when Ralph makes the phone call to Paulie Walnut's mom.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. I had a great time laughing, in that scene. That was one of the memorable scenes. In the opening.
Was this a rodent in the rectal passage or something like that?
I had some fun with John Fiore too. John's a great actor. With John, playing cards at the craps table, playing craps, and we had some fun too. Finding him on the bathroom bowl wasn't great for him, but
yeah, we talked about actually.
What the fuck you looking at? Go call 911. That was fun.
Yeah. Was that you that found him? Was that you that kicked in the door? You were there,
No,
I know.
That was me.
Yeah. Okay.
I said to, what the fuck you looking at? Call 911. Ray Franz, another good actor, Ray.
Yeah, we talked with John last week on the show. He was a fantastic interview, and that was what he said when he got the call. He's like, back in those days, you had to, the answering machines, and he's thinking, oh, it might be something good, and then obviously he got the news, and he's like, all right, well, if I gotta go, I gotta go. So who's taking me out? Am I going out in a blaze of glory? What it is? And they're like, oh, you're gonna die on the toilet, and he's like, are you serious? Like, is that really? That's how I'm gonna go?
There's nothing we can do on the Pisha do, as Tony.
On the Pisha do, yeah.
Yeah, you're written. It's just the way it is. The writers write the way they write. I mean, sometimes the writers got ideas like Ralphie shooting baskets with Vito.
Yeah.
One time at one of the times we were on the set at Silver Cup, we started shooting. They had a basketball. Some of the local union guys pull out a basketball hoop, and we started shooting baskets. And Ralph shooting baskets, Vito was shooting, I was shooting baskets. That's how they got the idea to have that little, snippet scene with him and,
Yeah.
and Vito puts his hand out, and he's shooting baskets. I don't know if they were playing for money, but there are different things in real life that the writers would get ideas from, like the Furio moment with Federico at the racetrack with Pie Maud. He won, and Tony looks at it and says, "What'd you win?" He put $2 on a horse. I was there when that happened. Actually, I created that scene because we were at the Breeders' Cup, and Freddie said, "I won it." So I never forget. He said, "So let me see your ticket," because I'm a horse player. I love to play horses. I like
Yeah.
to handicap horses. And I said, "Let me see your ticket." He had $2 on it, on an $8 horse. Or maybe 4-1, 5-1 shot. So you won $16. The riders were Robin and Mitch were there. Mitch Burgess.
Yeah.
They got that idea. So they got ideas from real life too. From us, our behavior. That's a lot of TV's done that way. They get to know the actor, and that's the way that's the way it's done. And because film scripts are different. There's a trajectory, a beginning. Well, there doesn't have to be an end, but usually there is.
Yeah.
In Rocky, there's an end. He goes the distance. In many films, Shawshank Redemption, he escapes and he's free. And
Yeah. And I'm
hope
not
is a
sure
good
if it
thing, the
was,
best thing that hope is a good thing. Sometimes the best and no good thing ever dies. So I just love that film. But a lot of in TV, it's a little bit of different. It's a little bit more open ended. Of course, everyone didn't like the ending of Sopranos. I don't know if you did, but I liked it.
I was, it's perplexing, man. It's perplexing because, I was like, God, I wish there would have been a wrap up. But then the more I looked into it and the more I kind of looked at it from a different set of eyes, so to speak, I'm like, how do you wrap that up? How do you put a bow on a show like that? And I think the way he did it was brilliant because it leaves it into interpretation of the viewer. And we're still talking about, you and I are talking about it now, what, 25 years later, 20 plus years later. It's crazy. And now I don't know if you've seen it. I know there's a lot of Sopranos groups out there. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there. There's a lot of people that break down the ending. And I watched a lot of them. And most of them I can dismiss of people just kind of putting their own spin on something. But there was one I seen, and it was about 3 weeks ago. And it goes deep, so you'll have to buckle in here. But in the last episode, if you remember, AJ had a girl with him sitting on the couch. It was a girl he was talking to, and he was talking with his mom. They were in the Soprano house, and Edie says, or Carmela says, we're going to do dinner at Holston's. So she hears that, and they freeze frame it on her. She's kind of like, looking like she hears that. Then they cut to the guy, and I can't remember his name, but he was the one up under Phil and that New York crew. He was right up under Phil. He was the one that Tony went to and kind of gave him the okay to go ahead and take Phil out. I can't remember his name, but he was in there for the last couple of seasons. They're talking about who they're going to take out. They're talking about they're going to take out Sil, they're going to take out Bobby and all those. And they freeze frame that scene. And I don't know if he says something about a granddaughter or something like that about a daughter, but you see a picture in that scene that looks identical to the girl that was sitting on the couch with AJ. And so the correlation that they're putting is that girl is a plant in there to talk to AJ to figure out where they can get in to put the hit on Tony. It might be totally off the rails, but it makes you think, because she didn't know where they were going that night. And it looks just like her in that picture. They freeze frame it and they do a side by side, and it's damn close, man. I'll tell you, it's damn close.
Well, that's just given the because that's the first theory that I've heard of, that theory, that the freeze frame theory, we might call it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Peter Wolf freeze frame,
Yeah.
um, it lends itself to what you said before. Everyone can figure out their own ending. Maybe it was placed in there for people to. David placed in there. He probably wouldn't admit to it, but for people to think about, like the Beatles did, and Paul is dead. You know what I'm saying? Which he wasn't, and he crossed Abbey Road with without socks on. And I think that was just the way he felt. I don't think there was anything, I think he talked about it, and I want to see the Hulu special with Paul McCartney. But getting back to Sopranos, and that episode, yeah, I think that lends itself to what you're saying. I mean, it being it lends itself to the interpretation. I think that Peter Bogdanovich's view of a great director and brilliant film critic and reviewer and a lover of cinema said it best, that there's a lot of symbolism in the ending. The members only jacket,
Yeah.
the brothers who were involved in it. It was symbolistic of a cross section of America, and also that Tony really Soprano is never going to die. I mean, well, and that's proven to be true given the rash fluctuation or the dissemination of the COVID vaccination cards. The black hand is everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, who's distributing those? I mean, will it ever end? I don't think it will ever end. I think it's going to go to the end of the world until that happens. So God comes back or whatever. I mean, Bogdanovich's view, it really, I thought, was the best description of, it's a metaphor for America and how we live in the time that we live in.
Yeah, and there was keys that if you picked up throughout that series, especially in the season 6, when Bobby and Tony are in the boat and they're sitting there up there, it's before they had their fight sequence, for I forgot what that episode was, but it was kind of the first of the second half of season 6, where they're talking and he's like, I bet you don't even hear it when it happens, and that's one that I think David Chase put in there, knowing what he was going to do, just to kind of give you, because you go black, so you don't really know what happens, so you don't realize that it's happened. But like I said, again, it's left up to the viewer, and I think that's the brilliant way it did. I thought my DVR cut out. I was so mad because I was working third shift at the time, and before you could get on the phone and find out, I didn't really have to worry about spoilers, but I had my DVR set, and my wife was like, "You're gonna go nuts." She watched it because by that time she was into it too, like I was. And I was working night shift. I would go in on Sunday nights. I hated it. I hated missing Sopranos. So I get home that morning. I'm driving 95 home, trying to get home and watch, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, the damn DVR cut off right here. And she's like, no, that's how it ended. It went black. And I was just like, oh gosh. And I mean, it was just groundbreaking, mind blowing, breathtaking all at once.
I think that everyone wants this, payoff, but life is really truly not like that. Things go on. I mean, a soldier, he saves a life, he's given a medal, but then he has to deal with PTSD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't see the PTSD, we just see the medal. And so I think David gave you an idea that life goes on and it's always going to be here, and it doesn't always end in, for instance, the Gotti film ends in Gotti being taken down. It doesn't always end that way. I think a lot of people wanted to see that. They wanted to see Tony Soprano maybe murdered or killed, maybe not, but they wanted this big fight or whatever. And I don't think they would have been satisfied with him going to jail like John Gotti did. I think they would have fucking hated that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think David's choice was more to real life. I mean, he's just a genius.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have been satisfied either way. Had he gotten killed, they'd have been pissed that they got the drop on him. Had it just went off, they'd have been, if he'd have just finished eating dinner and went off, then they'd be like, well, that was anticlimactic. So he was in a no-win situation.
I mean, you want to blow him up like they did it, like Marty did with Scorsese did with Marty did with in Casino. But then
Ace Rothstein's character would have blew him up in the car. Yeah.
But he lived through that. It could have been that. I mean, it's a lot different. But, listen, it is what it is. And I thought it was great. And,
So out of all the seasons you were in from 3 all the way to 6, obviously you had some memorable scenes throughout there. One of the ones that I remember is when you're in the hospital, and I forgot who that was in the hospital. Maybe it was
Probably Max.
yeah, Max Casella, yeah. And he was like, what do you want to do about it? He's like, what do I want to do? I want that man there to do something about it. I want to give him the okay to go to Brooklyn and clean some fucking timepieces over there. I remember that. And then obviously you smacking little Paulie
Eddie.
at the, or yeah, well, Paulie with the Snapple at the construction site.
Got that on the first take.
Really? So was that, what was that? A sugar water?
Yeah, sugar cane, and I guess there's a special company that makes that.
Yeah.
And that particular prop, and I remember getting it on the first. Everyone was so happy because, and a little piece went into Jeff Marchetti's eye because Jeff, who played a little, I forgot what Jeff's. Anyway, one of the actors Jeff Marchetti went into his eyes, and but it wasn't serious.
Yeah.
But Carl, who played little Paulie, he was great. He's a great writer too, and he was all good about it. And it was nice to get on the first take because he didn't have to go through that so many times, And everyone knew that when they saw that was going to be pretty good. I said, well, yeah, get the smash. Even Edie said, hey, you get to smash the guy over in the head. That's good. Yeah, all this training. Shakespeare, for muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention, kingdom for a stage, all reduced to a immortalized in a Snapple bottle. You know how many people came up to me? They still do. I love that Snapple bottle.
And the way you look, I've seen that look around certain people. When he said the little comeback to you about the girl with the mustache, and you just go,
"What'd you say?
Wait, what'd you say?" And you got that swagger nod, like I'm fixing to knock the hell out of you. And you get up and you just lay him out there in the chair. I mean, it was classic. It was brilliantly done. And then going forward, which out of those seasons that you were in, which one was your favorite to shoot out of 3, 4, 5, and 6? Which one was your favorite?
The one that I really truly liked, I mean, it can only be one, was Members Only, because I got a real chance to have, the other stuff was great, but then I was given an episode that I had a story arc, and for an actor who's been in theater, I've done some theater, and I've done some films too, in the sense of having a trajectory of where you're going.
Right.
That was my favorite one because I got a chance to do scenes with Jimmy, do scenes with Michael. I love that scene that we did, and clean some time, the whole thing. Time's Up, and with the Frankfurters, and to work with him, to work with Stevie Van Zandt and Silvio, and Jimmy, and all the actors there. And of course my wife Suzanne Dodonna, who did a great job as my wife.
What now? Was she
and Grace Van Patten, who played my daughter? That was Tim Van Patten's daughter, who played, and she was really Grace. I mean, it was weird because to work with her, the episode reminded me of Grace because it was really great to work on. I knew Wade that, and you know what? Should I call you Chip or Wade?
Oh, Wade's fine. Yeah, Wade.
Wade, that people would basically identify with the situation.
Yeah.
Of wanting to get out of something of your life and to change careers. But how many of us are stuck in that? It's too late. You can't do it. One way or the other. Not that you have a Tony Soprano telling you can't get out of the mob, but you just can't change midstream. You've worked at a company for years and you have a dream of getting out, but it's just not feasible. The dream is not feasible for happening. So people would identify with that. It's like Brando. I correlated to Brando, who said that when he did Waterfront, that the speech, everyone remembers the speech, I could have been somebody, instead of a bum, I could have been a contender.
Yeah.
He said that, that scene with Steiger, that the writing was so great that, not to say that another actor could have did it as good as he did it, but people would have remembered that scene because all people could identify with being a contender, could have been somebody, but they got a bad break along the way. So Eugene's character wanting to get out, I knew that people would remember me basically by that. And it was better to me. I mean, even though it was like a a meal and a pill. You know what I mean? It was like a
Yeah.
capsule of a life and that's why I loved the episode and I love doing it.
Now, did David tell you that you were going out beforehand? Did he kind of let you know? Did you know in season 5 when it was wrapping, or did you not find out till later? How did that happen?
Well, before we started shooting, I started getting phone calls from people saying, "Hey, you know that they're casting your wife, and you got a kid. You know that you have an older kid, and they're casting that, so they must be opening up your character. What's going on?" I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool." They're casting. My agent said that they're casting because he probably sent some of his clients to audition. Not that any of them. Eric Faber, passed away. God bless him. He's a great guy. Um, so I started getting inklings that there, but I did get a call after all those things were all the rumors and everything were over that in my family, and David did call me, said I got great news. I had good news, I got bad news, Bobby. Which you want first? I said, give me the good news first. I said, well, you wrote an episode. It's all about Eugene. I mean, the whole episode basically is you're part of the episode in a big way. What's the bad news? Well, you're dead. That's the day, but you're dead. So he didn't tell me how it was going to happen until I read the script, but I was really happy. Of course, I wasn't happy when he told me I was dead,
Right.
but I was happy that that I would play a big part in that season opener.
Yeah.
And it worked out for me because I really loved it. It was great.
Now, your death is unlike a lot of them on the show. Obviously, this is a mob TV show, so most people are getting killed in brutal ways. But your death was very visually brutal. Like, I mean, I've seen people hang themselves in scenes before, and it wasn't as, I don't know, real feeling as yours. Like just the way when you come off that chair, the way you struggled and the way you try to fight it, it was really, really real. It's like you felt, watching it, you felt what you were feeling there. I mean, how did you feel doing that? Could you tell that it was, going to be something special being watched back?
I know that, before Eugene, uh, uh, kind of pushes the boxes away, whatever it was, a chair. I think it was a,
Yeah, I think you were on a chair or a box or something.
yeah, something like that. I can't remember. I created this space for myself, and Tim said, just stay there where you're at because it's great. You see his eyes. Of course, after the pictures you see, I created this whole hypnotic thing of my past, and I really was like there, and it really was scary. And of course, then jumping off, I just kind of improvised with the. I did do a little research about the kinetic of the feet of the leg shifting that
Right.
which everyone points out. I did do a little bit of that the nerves that happens. Someone told me that. I talked to my brother about it. Was a doctor, and he said that I did a little research about that. But other than that, it was basically improvised. And of course, with the help of Pete Bogosi, the great stunt coordinator, who had flown in a body brace from California to make sure that I was safe. I really felt safe. I wasn't going to fall off there.
Yeah.
So we did it, and a couple of takes, and I felt good about it. People say that way that you're trying to save your life, and I said I don't think it was a question of saving my life. It's a question like of cutting yourself and saying, "Ouch, that hurts." It was more like that. God, it fucking hurts, man. It's different than just shooting yourself in the head.
Yeah.
It was more like, it was hurting me. So I mean, it was more. I didn't. Some people say, "Oh, you try to get up." No, but it's a reaction that you would.
Yeah.
That reflex alone is like, God, what's going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And I know they allude to it in the show, and a lot of people say, well, that's a coward's way out, and things
Yes.
like that.
Talked about that. Yes.
I don't know if I can say that 100% that that's a coward's way out, because that takes a lot of balls to do something like that, because there's no coming back from it. Whether you do it like that or whether you choose to do it any other way, that is final. There is no repeats, there is no redos, there is no cuts. There, that's it, and it's over. So to me personally, I'm not condoning that, by any means whatsoever, but that is balls to the utmost to do something like that because, like you said, it's final and that's it, and there's no going back.
I've had some people who called me who were suicidal that said, you saved my life. You know what I mean? I saw that scene with you.
Wow.
And they actually, I recall one person telling me that online, a Facebook friend, saying that really, that scene that you did, that really, it saved me from, from doing that. I mean, uh, any death like that is hard. I think that um, David kept on adding scenes, talking to the FBI, and Ray Curto died, and I was going to be their new informant. You wanted the walls to close in on me.
Right.
And they closed in on me to a point where, you know what I mean, I realized that I wasn't going to have this new dream, which the dream wasn't going to happen. To me, it was always the dream doesn't happen, but at least my family could have some sort of solace because it's not going to happen for them.
Right.
And to me, I did it for them.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not written in there, but I do think there are hints of it, especially with the shell
Mm-hmm.
uh, and the pictures into the shell, and the shell, the past, trying to, I'll never have the dream. I thought it was brilliant. That was a great touch, you know. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, although they spoke about me in a different way, he's a mutt, and I think Michael said that. To me, it didn't matter because I know, you know, why I did it. I know why Eugene did it. It doesn't have to be explained in the episode. To me, that's what it meant to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everybody can have their own interpretation of it.
Right.
You do too. And not everyone says, and some people say, you did it because you were a rat. I don't. I say no, I'm not. I know I didn't. I did it, but I disagree. But they have the right to their opinion.
Well, and it's like you said, you were boxed in. The walls were closing in. You had the FBI over here. You got Tony over here.
Wife,
Eventually, that's going to come to a head. You got your wife over here. Problems with your kid over here. It's you got it from every direction, and
substance abuse.
that's usually what leads people to do things like that when they have it coming from every direction. It's not usually one thing that does it. It's a culmination of things, and that was kind of exactly what your character was going through.
Absolutely, Wade. And even what my son with the substance abuse, that was like, we don't really talk. I don't talk to too many people about it. You're one of the people I will tell that it's affected a lot of families' life. Substance abuse, OxyContin, which led to heroin, and it's affected my family. I lost my nephew. Uh,
Sorry about that.
Thank you very much. But it was kind of weird that later on that would happen to me in my life. You know what I mean? I miss him so much, Joseph. But um, listen, David. What I wanted to say here is that he was ahead of his time in many different things, and that was one of the scenes I thought that he was ahead of his time, because later on there were so many deaths to children or young adults like my nephew that succumbed to heroin and things like that.
Yeah.
So he was really truly ahead of his time. He never said anything about it, but he did broach the subject. He wasn't afraid to broach that subject, and for that, I give David Chase a lot of credit because it was a challenging situation that he brought up.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And like you mentioned, the opioid crisis is still, a big deal in our youth today. I mean,
yeah.
it's rampant, it's everywhere. And, they're finally starting to clamp down on it a little bit with the doctors. But I mean, for a while, it was just you could go to a doctor and they would just write those things out, barely
Well,
looking at you.
it became hard to get, and then in New York they started to give out heroin for $10 bags, and then of course the heroin was laced with fentanyl,
Yes.
and that was such a deadly combination. And sometimes, you know, I understand addiction because there are things in my life that I understand. I won't mention them here. That how you walk a fine line in life, and that how close you are to maybe doing something that's not correct. But there are some things like that particular addiction that, like you said, uh, hanging myself is final. That's a finality to that also. Whereas there are other addictions. Okay, let's just mention alcoholism.
Mhm.
Not that I ever want, but it doesn't matter because it's just an example that the alcoholism, just need that little touch and then bam, that's it, and then you're off. It could be gambling, bam, and then you're off. Then you're chasing and you're trying to make your money back and you're
Yeah.
losing thousands. How many times has that happened?
Oh yeah.
I
They
mean, they
covered
show
it
it.
in The Sopranos season
Yes,
2.
and they covered it in Marty Scorsese covered it in one of his films too, Casino. Uh,
Yes.
he talks about he talks about Rothstein, talks about that whole thing. He won $50 million, whatever he won, and then all of a sudden it took one little thing. They know how to get you, man, because that's
Yeah.
you know
Yeah, the whale that won all the money, and then they got him back in there because
that's
it's
right.
not some I can't remember where I heard it from, but it explains it perfect because I like to throw some money down on a football game here or
I
there.
know we do it
It's
here in New York all the
yeah,
time. There's
it's
parlays,
not
parlay, 5 team
yeah,
parlays.
yeah. It's not the money. You could I think a millionaire it's not the money that you're winning, whether it's a
Right.
5,000 or 5 million or $5. It's that excitement that you're watching the Browns and the Ravens on a Monday night to hit your parlay when otherwise you wouldn't give a shit about the Browns and the Ravens or whatever team. I'm using
It
that for an
creates
example.
this dopamine like the drugs do.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. Like when you watch Sopranos, there was dopamine going through you. I mean,
Yes.
it was that thrill, you know what I mean? That goes through you. When I'm acting, you get that in the theater, that instant rush with the audience, but with a live audience. But when you're on the set, it's great when you're doing it, but when you see it, there's a separation of that, what we're talking about, that
Right.
dopamine,
Yeah.
that if I'm saying that word right, that
Yeah.
correctly, correct me if I'm wrong,
I
but
think I think you're right. Yeah. Dopamine. Yeah.
dopamine. So, I mean, that's the thing. People say, what do you like better? I love doing film, but I get a better satisfaction with theater because it's like, I don't know, it's something weird about the audience watching him. Then my mentor, Richard Bright, who played Al Miri on in The Godfather, he played Michael Corleone's Luca Brasi. And
Yeah.
he played in many, many films beside that, Richard. Marathon Man, so many great films. Um, he always said that, well, you got to think of the camera, all the thousands of people watching you when you see that camera. And that's how you kind of can transfer what you love to do in the theater to doing it on film, which is a pretty good way to, so, I mean, you see that, the camera, it's there and it's like an audience member, but think of how many people it's going to reach,
Yeah.
millions of people. And it gives you that dopamine adrenaline like you need, like you know what I mean? He was really a smart man, very smart man. Lost him, unfortunately, to a terrible accident in New York. So
Well, sorry
yeah,
to hear about that for
yeah.
sure. Um, so after Sopranos, a little bit later on, you get cast in a film that took a long time to get made. It was kind of, similar to the Gotti film when Travolta. It went through a lot of different hands. It finally wound up with Martin Scorsese, which was The Irishman. I know they had a lot of different things they had to do to get that film done and made and get, Bob transform back to his younger self and then transgressions through the film. How did you enjoy working on that film? Was that a good
Oh,
time or was it stressful or how was that?
well, no, because um, I work with Marty on vinyl.
Right.
So
I
I got
love
a
vinyl.
chance yeah, I got a chance to work with him, and he just creates the set that you guarantee to have a good performance. He puts you at ease, you know what I mean? Tells you just do what you want to do there, or gives you a note and you do it. But there's never any kind of like hierarchy, or he's just a regular guy. I mean, basically, I know guys like Marty from my neighborhood, you know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, he's a genius director, and he's not intimidating at all because he knows that you can't intimidate an actor and get a good performance from them. So
Right.
being on vinyl, um, was great. Of course, working with Garrow, who played Galasso,
Mhm.
you know, to my character, which is Del Greco. Love the name. Uh, you know, I'd worked with him before. Now I was doing Sinner. I was finishing up Sinner in South Carolina, and I thought I had, and all the casting had basically been done. So I remember talking to, I think Chris, who was one of the leads he played Jessica Biel's um, uh, boyfriend, and um, I remember asking him, you know, did you get called in for The Irishman? He said, no. I said, I didn't get called in either. But I got back to New York, and a couple of weeks later, Eric Faber, my manager, called me up and said, hey, they want to read you for Irishman. I said, really, man, isn't it too late? They started production. They had started in September, and I
Yeah.
got the call like in no, in the middle of September, but they had started production late August. So I didn't think there was any chance of me being in it. So when the audition came, of course, yeah. I mean, went to see Ellen Lewis, and she gave me some notes, and I just enjoyed doing it. And it was a great experience working with Robert De Niro. It was a dream come true. I'll just talk to you a little bit about the take. You know, the last take was basically Marty coming around saying, "Okay, now do it your way. Uh, just do it. Just throw everything out. You know, and just do it." And I did, and I added some lines like the receding hairline, and that's the take that Marty used. I mean, so
Wow.
active freedom, but I use Steve Zalian's. I'm not in any cup anywhere near Steve Zalian, writer of Gladiator, you know. But Marty gets these improvs from the actors I think the actors like myself are indigenous and know the territory.
Yeah.
Marty had, trusted me that I knew the territory, and I do. I mean, I grew up around these guys in Brooklyn and stuff
Right.
like that. So he let me fly, so to say. And I thought we came up with a good take, you know, and it kept me around too. That's the great thing about Marty. Now, talking about the script, I heard it did go through a big process of being produced.
Mhm.
I thought Hulu was going to produce it, and then Netflix wound up producing it,
Yeah.
and I think that Marty wanted to tell a story his way. It was a 3-hour film. Everyone said, "Hey, man, it's too long." But I got to tell you something right now. Wait, if you saw it in the theater, which I saw it in the theater on 57th Street, one of the premier theaters, it was great. I enjoyed it so much. It wasn't long to me in the theater. Now on
Oh,
TV, maybe it is long because you're sitting down, you got the family coming in and out, they're doing things and everything. But in the theater, I remember going to see the Ten Commandments, and same thing,
yeah.
it was 2 hours or something. I mean, the Led Zeppelin 7-minute song. You want a genius? I mean, come on, sit down and watch this movie. I mean, people are going to appreciate The Irishman another 5 and 10 years, because that's a lot of
Yeah.
Marty's films, not all of Marty's films. I'm just saying they really appreciate it later on down the road, and they're going to
Yeah.
appreciate the performances of Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, De Niro, Bobby Cannavale, Ray
Yeah.
Romano, myself.
Harvey Keitel in there. I mean,
Yeah,
just
Harvey Keitel. I mean, all the small performances, everything. It's like he's a great composer, or like Ennio Morricone.
maestro.
He's a composer, but they did go through that trajectory of, But I think the only way for Marty to do it his way was to have Netflix produce it, because no one wants to produce a 3-hour film. They felt, but then again, wait, I'm just digressing a little bit. It got a great review in the Times, and I am positive that if they didn't limit the performances, because they wanted to have the performances in the theaters to give it its right, just rewards for the Academy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But if they went full blast in the movie theaters, I know, because they say it lost money. I know for a fact. I know the first 2 weekends it would have recouped all the money. But listen, that's what
Yeah.
Netflix wanted to do. And in a way, they kind of knew what the pandemic was coming, and everyone would be locked in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I remember watching that film. I want to say it dropped around Thanksgiving. I believe it was somewhere around there, because my family, I had to work, and my wife had took our kids back to visit her family, which is about 2 hours away. So I was coming home by myself, and I was stoked, because I'm like, all right, I'm coming home. The Irishman's out. I got the house to myself. Nobody's going to bother me. And I watched it straight through, and I'm like, it was so good that it didn't seem like a 3-hour long movie. Now, if you want to watch it a second and a third time, might can seem a little long because
Yeah.
you've already kind of got a gist of what it is. But watching it through that first time, I mean, it went through fast.
Yeah, so
And I
you
mean,
were down, you wanted to see it, but I mean, yeah, I get you. And
yeah,
I'm telling you that if you saw it in the movie theaters, it was just fabulous to see on the big screen.
yeah. Oh, I bet it was. And talking
Fabulous.
about Bobby Cannavale, he was in Vinyl too, right? Wasn't he in Vinyl
Yeah, he
too?
was the lead in Vinyl. He was the lead in Vinyl.
Yeah.
I
Now,
mean, I don't know why the series was ended. HBO
I don't
said it
either.
was too much money, but who the hell knows? Who the heck knows? I mean,
But I don't know if you caught his performance in Boardwalk Empire or not.
he's brilliant at Boardwalk Empire. Yes, brilliant.
Jip Rossetti, I mean, he killed that. And I'll tell you a quick story. We've already gone over and I told you how long I keep you, but the conversation's just been great.
Yeah,
So,
we're gonna wrap it up, man. But if you have any more questions,
yeah, he
I can
played
talk
Jip.
all night about film. I love film, and
Me too, man. And he played Jip Rossetti in Boardwalk Empire. And so we're in a club one night and I'm with some buddies and I met this person. We were talking and she's like, "What's your name?" And back home, everybody knows me as Chip. Well, down here in Charleston, everybody kind of calls me Wade. And now when I've started this podcast, I'm going by Wade. So I said Chip, and I guess she couldn't hear me up under the lights and the sounds and everything. So she goes, "Did you say Jip?" And I said, "Yes, Jip Rossetti. Yes, nice to meet you." And so I just went and I used his name from Boardwalk Empire. But I mean, he killed that role, 100%. And I loved him in Vinyl. I loved him as what was Skinny Razor and the Irishman. I mean, he killed all you guys are fantastic.
Thank you. I thought Vinyl was very underrated. I didn't see why it didn't go another 3 or 4 seasons. I mean, but obviously, I mean, listen to. Maybe some of the producers weren't happy with the way it was, the direction it was going. I don't know. I thought it was good.
Yeah, Olivia Wilde in there. I mean, a star-studded cast for sure.
I mean, look, that was the record business. I mean, I do believe that was an idea that Mick Jagger, had.
Yeah.
Presented it to Marty, and then they wrote it. Was an idea that he kept in the back of his mind, and they wrote the script. And Terry Winter wrote the script, a great writer. Award-winning writer, won the award for the Emmy for Members Only, Best Dramatic Episode. I was very proud of that, also being a part of that.
Yeah.
Best Dramatic Episode of season 6.
Mm-hmm.
Not many times you're involved in that kind of a episode, so I was really honored to be in that. And I mean, it really took on the record industry. It's the wise guys involved in it. I mean, I have people in my life that I work with. Al Martino was one from The Godfather who played Johnny Fontaine. His story was he had to leave America because he was contracted with some wise guys from Philadelphia, and he went to London and he did some albums. This is after he was successful.
Right.
He had to live in London for a while, and then he came back to America and he wrote Buffalino. He got in touch with Buffalino. And he got a sit down meeting with him, and he told him what happened, and Buffalino said to Al, "Can you prove it?" And Al went about. I'm not going to tell you how he did it, but he went about improving it. And Buffalino said to him after he proved it, "You can start playing the cabarets here. I'm going to allow it." And that's how he got back. So. That's the way the record industry was. So it was very true. The wise guys, and also Morris Levy, who was the manager of Tommy James. If you ever read Tommy James' autobiography, it's a great book.
Yeah.
He talks about Morris Levy and Tommy James and the Shondells, of how he never made any money. He was always taking care. He finally, I don't want to give away, but it's a great thing. I think he, because we're talking about vinyl. He was able, Levy got sick or something like that, and they couldn't find out how many, there were no numbers. All the records were destroyed.
Right.
And I think his manager or Lordy came up with the idea, geez, what if we were to go to the label companies that press the labels themselves, and we got a number. And that's when he sued him. He got the number of the labels, and he was able to recoup some of his money.
And
there were no records.
Yeah. They touch on that in The Sopranos as well. Hesh has kind of got a Morris Levy feel to him.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. And a hit is a hit. when they go back and they try to recoup some money. I think the guy's name was Jimmy Willis in the episode, but had Bakeem Woodbine in there,
Yeah.
where they're trying to recoup some money from
Yeah.
guys that had done it a long time ago. So yeah, I mean, Chase was on top of a lot of that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the writer team of Robin and Mitch and David Chase and Terry Winter, of course. I mean, there's these guys that read. That's all they do is read. They get ideas, they read, and they make movie magic. They put it into reality. Life imitates art. Art imitates life. Same thing, we.
Absolutely. Well, look here, man. We're gonna try to wrap things up. There's two things I want to ask you here. The last one. Have you seen the trailer for the Many Saints of Newark?
I have.
I don't know about you, and I mean, obviously, it's got to be more profound because you working on that show and you work with Jimmy and you knew him personally. But that opening sequence, when you hear Jimmy talking, when you hear him saying, guys like me grew up with a code, and then you see that's his son in the phone booth. I shit you not, I got chills running down my arms seeing that.
Michael is a fine actor, and it's very tough to walk in your father's footsteps. But I think that he's surrounded by people in his family that are down to earth as Jimmy was, to not make it get to his head.
Yeah.
He's proven himself in Cherry. He's proven himself in some films. And I'm sure he's going to deliver a great performance because he's a brilliant actor to be. And he's growing and growing and growing. And he gets to play his dad as a young man. How many people can boast of that? I loved it. Gave me chills too. Just like you. I mean,
I can't wait to see it.
I think certain things like the way the country is going, the delay in the film and opening it, there's a lot of different factors, but I'm sure it's going to be good. You know what I mean? Because we have to wait because of COVID and whatever,
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be out like earlier this year, and then it got pushed back to September, and now I think it's like the 1st of October. So it's just like I keep getting my hopes up, and then it's pushed back, but I can't wait. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yes.
The trailer, it's so hard when you're messing with a fine piece of artwork like The Sopranos was as a whole. It's a fine line because you don't want to do something to disvalue it by doing a movie. But
Alan Taylor is directing it. He was one of the original directors, and you're right. So finish what you're saying. So,
right. Well, no, yeah. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, you don't want to disvalue the work you did as a Sopranos, so that's always a fear.
Yeah, well, the same thing as Michael Gandolfini having to deal with acting and the critics, in his dad's, people comparing him.
Right.
I mean, it's very tough, and it's very tough to match. How many times have we seen remakes and they were horrible? I mean,
right.
I don't think The Godfather 3 was the original script. If I ever meet Francis, I'll ask him, because I talked to Richard and he was telling me that, well, I think it's public knowledge that Robert Duvall wanted to get paid a little bit more money than they wanted to pay him.
Right.
And they weren't going to pay him what he asked for. I don't know what it was. I don't know how many $1 million it was, or whatever it was. And because of that, I mean, the film had to suffer because they had to probably change it around. It probably broadened Al Neri's part with Michael, because he played a bigger part in the Godfather 3. Now, I heard that Winona Ryder was supposed to play, not taking away from anything from Sofia Coppola, because to me, I mean, everyone complains about her, and I thought she was good in it. I mean, I thought she was good too, but I mean, I heard that Winona Ryder was auditioned for the role, and that she was talked out of it. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Wow.
By someone, I'm not going to name names, but someone very close to her talked her out of the role, saying that to her that it would ruin her career. I mean, how could that ruin your career?
Yeah.
And you're going to be in The Godfather with Francis Coppola. That's the stupidity of ego. I mean, to me at least. I mean, I don't care how big I was, if a great artist asked me to be in his film like Francis Coppola, he's one of the greatest American directors ever.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the hubris in in your head, like you're doing, you're making money, making great art, but you let it, I think you let it get it ahead of yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
there
I
was
mean,
a
I never worked with an owner. I mean, maybe it's not true, but I heard a rumor, maybe. So I don't know.
I bet she's kicking herself now. I know there was a podcast that I listened to. There was a lady, and the name escapes me right now. I hate it when that happens, but
Don't
she
worry
was
about it. It happens all the time. I walk into rooms, I forget what I need, man. They'd say that Prevagen with the jellyfish helps, but my brother, the doctor, says it don't help at all. So I don't know who to believe.
she was an actress, and she got shot and killed by a obsessed fan. But she had gotten a script. I want to say it was for one of the Godfathers. And the reason why she opened the door was she thought that was a script being delivered for that. She was going to be getting a script to read for it. And at that particular time, when she opened the door, it was a fan and he shot her. I can't remember the name of it. I just listened to that
Shot
podcast. Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't that Spanish singer that what's her name?
No,
No.
Selena, no, it wasn't her. It was an actress. I have to go back. I listen to so many podcasts throughout the day. Like that's kind of all I do is listen to different podcasts. So so many of them they blend together.
Wade, you wouldn't believe on how people get roles. People own gambling debts to actors, and they get a role because they own the debt. They're a producer, and I could tell you, I have a few stories, but it's not. I mean, we just go on and on. But casting is an interesting. It's interesting how uh, fulcrum and leverage has to do with it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I'm
For
sure.
instance, like now we come up against as actors, like um, if there's a lead actor in a film with the agent, and the agent submits some of the other actors. Um, I'm not saying that the casting directors are kind of forced into hiring the other actors, but it's definitely, I think, considered because of the big actor that they were given. They're going to consider them because the big actor that said yes to the film.
Right.
So there's a group of actors coming from an agency that are being considered. Not saying they're getting the role, and the casting directors are great. I mean, they do their job, and great films are cast by great casting directors.
Right.
It takes like a village
Yeah.
community, and everyone adds to the greatness of a film, starting with that too. But um, there's a lot of there's deals made and everything. I'm not being a bitter actor. I'm just saying that
Right.
that happens to happen a lot of times with maybe more in film acting than in theater.
Oh, well, and then things other than that, I spoke to you earlier. I was a welder and I worked for a steel company for about 14 years, and it was one of the biggest steel companies in the world. It was called Nucor. I don't know
Newport.
if you've heard of it. It's one of the top steel companies in the world. And people used to joke because it was in the neighborhood where I grew up, which is in Darlington, South Carolina. You knew all the guys' parents that worked at Nucor. They drove the new cars and the Corvettes, and it was just that was a kind of a low income town. But if you worked out there, you knew who worked out there. And they said Nucor stood for nieces, uncles, cousins, and other relatives because that's the only way you could get a fucking job out there was because you had to know somebody. And that was the inside joke. And I was able to land it later on. I wound up having to get one in Columbia, South Carolina, and I worked there for like 7 years, and then I transferred here to Charleston. But it's just like that too. I mean, they have that kind of inside lane. You
Oh,
might be
listen,
the better man for the job, but that inside cousin, he's going to get it over you.
many people auditioned for Ralph Cifaretto. Ray Liotta, a lot of people auditioned for it. I landed the role. Let's face it, James was my agent. I
Right.
had no one. I wasn't even. James asked me if I'd been acting. I lied. I said, "Yeah, I've been acting. You kidding me? All the time. I do this, I do that." I didn't tell him I wasn't acting. I never worked professionally on film until that season. I had my apprenticeship, the greatest
Oh,
apprenticeship an actor can get. Although there was a lot of pressure, and there was a lot of after getting Ralph, and then I would say like asked to step down and to resign from it, because it wasn't working out. I was dealing with that too. Everyone looking at me on set, well, look at that guy, look at Bobby, man. And now he's Eugene. That's got to be like, how do you live with that? Well, I didn't fucking kill myself.
yeah.
I had my family and my friends who to fall back on to, to kind of work out with them and tell me to keep going. My mother and father, and God to me, you know what I mean, and kept me going. And I, I had the humility to keep going. People talk on set, and they say, and so I never would have got through it without the people around me. And I was happy at the end because I did what I could do, the best I could do. And I was damn pleased. It was good enough,
Yeah, you persevered and you lasted more seasons than Ralph Cifaretto did, so you got some more checks in the mail for sure.
That's right, Ralph. That's right, Wade.
You put some steak on the table, I think, as Steve Sharippa says in the latest.
I think that other actors should know. I mean, I'm not the first one. I mean, I think that there was other actors have been asked to, things have happened to them and their voices were replaced. So these are things you deal with as an actor. I think it's important. At first, some people would say, why would you tell that? Why? Because I'm telling it for the other actors that's happened to, so they don't give up, that they keep going and know that they got there because of their talent. It may not work out for now, but they got there for a reason. And that if they keep going, they can have a successful career, which is what happened to me. I'm very blessed that I had a successful career. Maybe not measured in the eyes of the greatness of that inner circle, but in my eyes, because you always got to please the inside of yourself first, and no matter what.
Right.
You measure yourself. Because when you got on Sopranos, you had to see me people, my best friends, people, and they call me up. And I said to myself, wow, how plastic is that? These people call some of these people, not the family members who really were really happy that I got on the show, but some people that I haven't heard in years, all of a sudden they're my best friends. So I said to myself, Rob, I've learned one thing, if anything from this whole experience, that others can't measure who you are, that you can only measure who you are by who you are. You measure yourself. You please the inside of yourself first, and then everything else. People, they're going to have their opinion of you, good or bad. Yep. But you see how they're my friends, Wade. So just goes to show you, be pleased with who you are.
Absolutely. you got to live with yourself. So, you said it perfect. Be pleased with who you are. And not
opinion of you.
Yeah, not everything is meant to work out. Sometimes when a door closes, it in effect opens another door you were supposed to go through anyway. There's been lots of times, and that's in life, not just with acting, but other jobs. I've not gotten jobs in the past that I really wanted.
Example. Yeah.
But it opened up me being able to take another job that wound up working better. At the time I was a little disheartened, but later on down the road, it turned out to be the right move. So, don't get discouraged, keep pressing forward, just like you said. And this has turned out to be a great career for you.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap this up, man. My last question I'd like to ask, especially with the Sopranos, outside of your death scene, what is probably your most memorable moment? It can be on camera, off camera, whatever, most memorable moment on the Sopranos.
Okay. When we did the golf scene, when me and Tony are in the golf cart, and then he has some people that I don't know if you recall that episode. I kind of, you see me for a second, and I tell Tony I'll see him later.
Yes. I think he meets up with Carmine or something like that after that.
We talk about some gibberish. We talk about something. I'll see you later. And well, James, of course, is my good friend. So we're in the golf cart and we're doing a couple of takes, and I got to pull a golf cart and hit the mark. It was kind of a pain in the ass to hit the mark. But anyway, we just kept going, kept doing maybe 3 or 4 takes. So on one take, we go all the way back to the pond. And Jimmy says to me, listen, Rob, Bobby, if you take the golf cart and you drive it into the pond right now, I'll give you $5,000. If you drive it into the pond. Because, to James, it's like, I mean, he has it down so well. I mean, he just wanted to have some fun. He was like John Lennon, on the set. So, James, you really will? I mean, I started laughing my ass off. And I thought about it. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. He said, yeah, go ahead, do it. And I said, wait a second. If I drive this into the fucking pond and you break your arm or something happens to you, crook your neck, and we stop the season, I'm going to be definitely written out of the show. I'm not going to be, well, maybe I will, but no, but I'll be responsible for hurting Tony Soprano. Actor Robert Funaro drives into the bonnet. I said, I can't deal with that pressure.
Yeah.
I said no to him, and we had a good laugh on it. But that was one of the greatest moments, funnier moments that I had. And I told the story to John Poderski. He's an artist. He did this artist. If I can grab the painting, I want to show it to you.
Yeah, sure.
Blends your program really great. Give me a second. Let me
Yeah,
grab it.
yeah, grab it.
This is the painting.
Oh man.
Painting, and it has a golf cart. See the golf. It's framed with the golf clubs.
Okay.
You know, and see it.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's.
And see James, look over here. That's what prompted me to was so bored of doing this scene. He said, drive the golf cart into, and that's me and him laughing on the left. So John had, he had depicted that, and I told him
perfect.
John. So it's a great, really painting. He really did a great job.
That's perfect, and that's just how Jim looked in some of the scenes. Like you can look, and he's got that scowl on his face.
Yeah.
And he's got the happy look on his face when he's enjoying himself. That's captured definitely in that photo there, in that painting.
Yes. Yeah, in the painting, yes. So that's how we'll end the show. Wait.
Well, that's good, man. I know Chrissy or Michael Imperioli said when it's like the first scene when he's driving him in the car, he said he didn't even have a license. And he wrecked the car, and James kind of banged his knee, and he said he was kind of looking over like, is he going to be upset or whatever? So he just started laughing. And, he knew right then he was going to be in good hands just because of how Jimmy took it. But yeah, he didn't even have a license driving that thing. He told him he did, but he didn't.
That's amazing.
That is, man. Well, look here. I am super glad you came on the show. It's been fun.
Well,
I've enjoyed talking to you.
We toggled a little bit, but eventually I knew I would, and you were persistent enough to keep knocking on the door and saying, let's do this. I got a lot of stuff going. Well, not a lot of stuff going on, but you know how life goes.
I mean, we know you had the Comic-Con come up, and then you're on vacation. And I said, look, we can do this at your convenience. I don't want to, don't put anything aside. If you got something to do it. But I definitely wanted to sit down with you and talk with you. And just like I thought it would be, it's been a fantastic episode for sure.
Thank you, Wade. And you've been one of the best interviewers I've worked with, really.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot. I'm just getting started here, so I'm kind of warming things up, and I'm excited about it. It's been fun. It's been a fun ride, and it's my favorite TV show. Like I said earlier, I rewatch it all the time, probably once a year. I rewatch it, so my wife probably knows about as much as the show by now to me. And I tell her, like, oh, I'm interviewing Eugene Pontecorvo, his character. I'm interviewing him, and she's excited, and I'm excited. So it's been a fun time.
Right on, man.
I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Robert Funaro. I am Hollywood Wade, and unfortunately, we are out of time. Go ahead and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. This podcast will be put out everywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Google, Apple, all of them. And this interview here in its entirety will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Robert, we couldn't thank you enough, my friend. We appreciate it. And have a good one.
Thank you, Wade. Thank you very much. Ciao, everyone.
Thank you,
Keep
sir.
on watching. Keep on. Don't stop believing.
That's right.
All right.